We're recording once again in our studio, which, as you can hear, is being titivated and a few little final touches being put to it. But it's amazing. It means that we can put the kids to bed, come out here to the garden and record, or we can pop out in the afternoon and record in here. It's made it kind of something we really look forward to doing, because we get to almost have a chat that we would have had anyway, but record it, right?
Yeah. This
is where you speak.
Sorry, I totally didn't zone out. You did. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh no, listen, right? If my own husband zones out, what hope? What hope?
No. No, like we sat in here and we listened back to David's episode, and once you listen back and you get used to your own voice and these things, and it stops swinging around on my chair. Sorry,
doing the same thing. We're like children.
You could then go through the episode and try to listen to it like you guys listen to it, and then try and give you our thoughts and feedback for what use that might be.
And we did learn the valuable lesson that my voice doesn't or my pace of speaking doesn't translate well to 1.5 or double speed. It's
I wonder how many of you listen to it at that speed.
Yeah, well, you said you could understand it, but I think that's
I could, but that's through practice. No. I remember practice with other podcasts.
I thought you were just listening to me speak at fast pace continuously every day in your ear, which is probably the real reason. Oh dear. So this is becoming just an evening chat, actually. This is kind of an insight into our relationship, right up to the fact that I was interrupted during the first attempt to record this by the youngest summoning me from the downstairs toilet. I'll leave the rest to your imagination. So we are gathered here today to discuss. Hang on, I think I'm being called again. Is it a cat or a child?
I think it's a cat. If right. It gets a bit more high pitched, hey, maybe I'd say the listeners could hear it.
And we could do a poll, cat or child. We spend a lot of our lives doing this. So anyway, David, he was Monday's guest, and because we record a little bit in advance now, I have started to have to listen back to them. And as John said, listening back to your own voice is really, really difficult. All our guests have found it quite hard. And I have to say, you do get used to it. And we must be pushing 50 episodes now. So it is something that you get used to. And actually, because enough time has passed between recording and listening back, it's not quite as jarring as it can be to have to listen to it twice in quick succession and then come back and discuss it in the kind of catch-up chat. And I just can't get over the whole 8 children.
No.
And he sounded really quite chilled. And then when he said, oh yeah, you have to cook them nutritious dinners, and I was thinking, goodness, with 8 children, I would just be, lobbing white buttered bread at them or something and hoping for the best. And a vitamin tablet.
A sack of grain and some rice.
Yeah.
There you go.
Grain, feed trays type things for horses.
It apparently worked for most of my ancestors up north, so who knows, eh? Who knows?
It's only a matter of time for one of our kids starts using a mixing bowl for cereal. It's unreal how much those kids eat.
But it brings to the point of like when he lost Tindy, he was at 5 children.
Yeah.
And 3 of them are twins.
Triplets.
Triplets, sorry. Not twins, triplets. But it was...
triplets and twins, I think. Hang on.
Yes, it was 2 girls and 1 boy.
Yes, so that kind of aptly brings us on to discuss what it is like having a big family. And we have 4 children, which sometimes feels like a very big family.
It does.
But most of the time it's pretty cool. But doubling that to 8 children, I think, could be quite challenging. And also, David had 5 children anyway. He was widowed. He had triplets and then 2 more children. So 5 children. And sorry, I probably should explain a little. David, his wife, they had 5 children and his wife died suddenly. She had Crohn's disease, and this led to infection, which was called sepsis. And the sepsis was so
inflammation caused a rupture.
Oh, thank you.
And it was much in the same way as the appendicitis, but on a much larger scale.
Yeah, he did go into some detail, didn't he, about it, and it caused sepsis, which really should have caused her to die in this country. He does say that, actually, doesn't he? That a doctor did say to him, it's very, very rare. And actually, he's come to terms with the fact it was a fluke, which is very kind of charitable. And I guess when something like that happens, you must feel a certain degree of unfairness and injustice. And I'm thinking kind of Anthony here. He lost his wife Courtney in hospital, didn't he? Sorry, I've gone off on one of my tangents. But so he had 5 children, and he had to tell them that their mum had died. I mean, bloody hell! That's some job, isn't it? You had to do it. You had to tell a child that their mum had died, and it is. I don't know.
An easy way.
No, and one thing I noticed in the interview was that he talks about having and forgive me if I'm using wrong terminology here, but I didn't make that great a notes, a child psychologist or a grief counsellor who was with him when he told them what had happened. He talks later on in the interview about this idea that men feel the compulsion to be strong and lock down their feelings and just kind of protect everybody around them. I don't think in this circumstance it's necessarily men. I think it's kind of a universal thing if you have children and something like this happens. But the way he had the foresight to put in a professional to help him have this conversation, and the subsequent way he has helped these children with their grief, I think is very. I saw a lot of symmetry with how we've done it with our kids. And I thought it was interesting to hear him talk about the male perspective. And obviously, you have a far greater insight into that than I do.
I do. And there was something that related to me was when I call it the game over conversation, because I can't really call it. I don't really know what else to call it, but it was the one handing over to palliative care, that one. And I remember my whole priority shifted overnight, and it was really, really strange. Because the way I used to run my days was I'd take Holly to school, and then I got to be with Sarah all the way up until before she went to bed, and I was always trying to be there to put her to bed. So I was always there at the start and there at the end of the day. And, Nan picked her up from school, fed her a dinner, gave her a bath, or, helped and got her ready, and then I came in and put her to bed. It was a bit of, it was a team effort. But then when that game over conversation came about, that changed. And it changed overnight. It was like, I have to go and protect Holly. And I wanted to be, I think it was a control thing. I wanted to control the narrative that was going into my daughter. And no discredit to my mother-in-law. This is not what I'm saying, but this was my own need. Subsequently, it's come up in counselling that I want to be a firewall and protect Holly from whatever harm I'm trying to protect her from. I become this firewall, and because I knew this like sort of torrent of emotions going to come because we know what's going to happen, and I had to stand in front of her and make sure that I controlled the flow coming to hit her.
I think, that's understandable. And that kind of desire to put the firewall between yourself, your child or your children and this kind of catastrophe that's just happened to them. I think a lot of widows will resonate with that, and widowers. Once again, I use the term widow to describe anybody that has lost a romantic partner, because we don't. Basically, I just don't want to call different names widows.
And it makes for a really long podcast title,
doesn't it? Yeah, widowed. Oh no, widowed either way. Widowed or widowed. I think with. Oh my god!
You tell us. Is this studio good for us?
I don't know if we should be kept in separate rooms. I think this might work better. No, I like it. It's cool. Okay, so one of the things I really liked about David is he talks really kind of. You can tell that he's had therapy and he's done the work, because he's now at this point that you get to where he's talking about acceptance. And acceptance doesn't mean accepting that what happened to you is fair and just, and what has been taken from you is okay. And you don't have to be cool with that. That's not what acceptance means. Acceptance means that part of you and that anger and sadness will actually, the anger does dissipate, I have to say, it really does, but the sadness will stay with you. But accepting that that's with you, and that you're allowed to be happy alongside it. That's what, in my view, acceptance means. Would you agree with that?
I do agree with that, and that's the reason why the talk therapy works, especially for me, is it allowed me to put down some other baggage, file it away properly, and I was actually strong enough to carry this, this handbag of grief or jar of grief or whichever.
So often we will go into therapy a little bit later. You went quite early, but I think that's very much the way you approach things, isn't it? And actually, that does tie in with what David says. He talks a lot about this kind of this mentality of you've just got to get this done. You've just got to buckle up or buckle in, buckle up and brace yourself and get through it, kind of head down into the wind kind of thing. And I do think, again, that's traditionally an idea that is very masculine, that you will carry the burden. Often men will carry quite a lot of responsibility and not feel that they can talk about it. They may have financial concerns or they may have mental health problems they don't want to talk about. And often, just due to the nature of how male relationships and friendships work, as we've talked about quite a bit, they don't talk about their feelings and emotions. And actually, I'm not sure that all, female friendships always do. I think sometimes we can be quite superficial too. But what then happens is if something like this happens, the loss of your spouse or, another really significant bereavement or can kind of push it too much, and if you try and squash down too much of this emotion, it can come out in anger. And I don't know, this is where the importance of talking and sharing comes out, because it is dangerous. And I think David even says himself on there, it is dangerous. It's dangerous, this idea that you have to remain strong for people around you all the time. Stoic, that's a really good word. I love that word. The cat's coming again. It's that stiff upper lip thing, isn't it? You must remain strong. And yes, to a certain extent, when you have kids, you do, but it's also really important to show them emotion and to show them that you're feeling pain. And I think it's very important that we do that, particularly where we're in a relationship now, because both of us feel very strongly that we are not replacing the person that they lost. There is I still love Ben, you still love Sarah, and we are still grieving them, and we will continue to do so. And I do think continuing to show them that is important.
Definitely,
yeah.
100%. 100%.
And actually, David does talk a lot about that as well. So I'm rattling out I made a lot of notes for this episode, can you tell? But he talks about the importance of talking about them and, just speaking about them naturally and conversationally, and not making this enormous big deal where they're only spoken about on anniversaries or birthdays or big prominent events. Because yes, it's important that we do that, but it's also important that they become part of everyday conversation as well, because that way I think I might have said, you keep their kind of magic alive, you keep the essence of what was them alive, even if you sadly haven't got them.
We've always done, and we sort of made the agreement that we would, because we don't want them to feel like they're forced to forget or anything. And we would just say to Holly, well, today, as early as today, like how much as she's growing, she's turning 10 now. And she's getting tall, and I'm saying, you're looking more and more like your mummy every day. And it's really, really nice to see. Even the way that, she has straight hair, and her mum had curly hair when she wasn't straightening it all the time. But the pattern of her hair when it's wet is the same as her mum's was when she got out of the shower. And it's just the little things like that. We just remind them, when you give her, you see this little glint in her eye, a little smile.
They love it, don't they?
And that's why you do these things.
Yeah, they do. And funnily enough, I said the same to the eldest earlier, because his hair's grown and suddenly he's grown, and he just looks like his dad. It catches me off guard sometimes, because he's not far off his dad's bloody height either. We got to stop feeding these kids. We've got to start throwing white bread at them. That's it. That's all they're getting now.
It did me no harm.
Another thing that I think is important when you're navigating this sort of blended family dynamic is the way that you speak about the late parent. And both of us, obviously we didn't know Ben and Sarah, but each other's. we sort of compliment and say, oh, you know, you look lovely in red. Your mummy's favourite colour was red, I think, you know, and do that sort of thing and try and make it a really positive thing every time that we're mentioning them. So it's not always, oh, got a whole red, you know, oh, your mummy looks so beautifully red. Do you know what I mean? It has to be much more, it has to be, because you want them, that's what you want. You talk then about that little smile and the glint in her eye that she gets when you say that to her. And I see that too, and it's beautiful. And that's exactly what you're looking for, isn't it? When you want them to think of them.
You know, Monty gave it you earlier when you said, you look just like your dad as he was walking back in the house. You know, it was the same flash then. It's like, okay, that's what these kids need right now.
Yeah, it is. And their shoulders sort of, you know, their heads straighten a little bit, and, you know, their shoulders. Would you hold your shoulders high? Hold your what? Hold your head high?
Head high. Yeah.
Head high. That's it. Oh, my God. Do you think that we should not do these in the evening? I think I've run out of...
You tell us, visitors. There's visitors. Hey, listeners, like and subscribe for this awesome content.
So last time we sort of checked in with you guys, we both had a bit of a rough week, sort of emotionally, hadn't we? A bit of a rocky, should we say, turbulent week.
If you're a rally driver.
And we ended up on Saturday, we had plans to go and see Pink up at Hyde Park. And I was a bit, not apprehensive is maybe the wrong word, but a little, I guess a little bit of anxiety was sort of rippling about it, because I'd been a bit unsettled and I didn't want to, have a bit of an incident or a wobble. And actually it was fantastic. It was really well run. The show was absolutely incredible, wasn't it? I mean, it was something else.
It was to see a human singing that well whilst being catapulted round Hyde Park.
Yeah.
Above everyone's head and spinning.
Oh my God. And she was singing live, wasn't she, as well?
Yeah, she was. I had to spin throwing up myself.
Well, and she's, I said to one of the kids, I showed them a video, and I said, hey, look at this woman. She's singing. They were like, wow. And she's my age. And at which point they just went, what? I thought, oh, okay, so that's the thing you find unbelievable. And maybe I shall find myself some trapeze lessons and show them. I don't think I've got the core for that.
I heard someone referencing music from the 1990s as the late 1900s. Just let that sink in.
What? What, at the gig?
No, that's probably on some social network video.
That makes me feel very, very
they had the Nevermind tape. I'm going to have a tape here. There's music from the late 1900s.
Wow.
So, thanks, world. Thanks.
Wow. Yeah. We also got to see Gwen Stefani, talking of sort of late 90s nostalgia. Holla back girl. John did not get up and dance to that, which I thought was a bit standoffish of him, if I'm honest. No one likes a wallflower. But yeah, otherwise, so I did book myself another therapy session, and I don't think I've done that before. I've had 2 in a week.
No. But
I really wanted to try and figure out why I'd got so completely distressed by it all. And I think, to be honest, it's an accumulation of things. And I think when you have fought really, really hard for something for as long as I've had to fight for this child, and then to feel like you've hit a dead end, you feel very powerless. And I talked about this on last week's episode, and then I think I probably name dropped on Instagram, because we do have Julia Samuel, who wrote the book Grief Works, coming in on Monday, coming on the podcast. She's not coming into the studio. And I was reading the book, which shamefully I haven't read up until now, because I never really thought of myself as a fan of a self-help book. I find them quite difficult to access, but I think, like many people, I found reading quite difficult in the widowed years.
Me too. Yeah. I'm still struggling to get back to it.
So I've probably got loads sort of in the basement somewhere, because loads of people did get me books, and I found it very difficult to read them. But what I'm really struggling to believe is that I hadn't read this book, because there is so many similarities between what we have found works and what we kind of preach, for want of a better word, on here, with what Julia recommends and what she suggests. And it's really, really interesting. And I would recommend reading it. I'm about halfway through, so I would need to get my skates on, really. And then what I think we will do is, all going well, we will put out a special in the middle of next week, because we'll be very excited to get this content to you, I think. Yeah. So we'll see what we can do. I'm not going to make any promises. John's looking slightly terrified over there. But we'll see what we can do, because I'm a little nervous. I'm not going to lie to you. The imposter syndrome is real. But I'm also really excited, and I have listened to her on a couple of other podcasts, and it sounds like she's really, really engaging and really interesting and very kind of raw and honest, which is obviously what we do here as well. So I will be interested to see what she has to say.
Yeah, I'm quite excited to see what she has to say too.
I think finally, just before we clear off for this one of the things that stood out to me, and a friend of mine who also has lots of children, she picked up on as well, was the way that David just refers to himself as having 8 children.
Yeah.
You know, there's no, I have 6 children, but 2 of them are not biologically mine or anything like that. And I like that. And I actually did an Instagram post today about this kind of, you know, all in, or, you know, you make a decision as a couple, don't you, whether you're going to go all in and become a parent to the child, or whether you're going to keep a little distance because they may be older, they may have, you know, concerns about this relationship or, you know, resistance. So it's about finding what works for you and your new family dynamic. And for us and for David, the best thing was just to kind of go all in.
Yeah.
But
we were very, very clear, and I think we've said to him on many occasions, we're not here to replace, but we are here to care for you and love you in our own way. And I think if you go in, you get the best out of them.
Yeah, and especially when they are younger, I think it's easier to do it in many ways. I think, unfortunately, once they get to teenage, it gets a bit difficult. And on that note, if we just point out that David and his new wife, Bathsheba, sorry, my pronunciation may not be right. They currently have 3 13-year-olds in the house. We just all think about that for a moment.
Both genders.
Oh. No, thank you. Although we will at some point have 2, so we shouldn't get 2.
Yeah, not all 13.
No, well, Hector and Holly will be 13 at one point together.
Oh God, yeah. That's more for Holly than Hector, if I'm honest.
That's when we.
I know her mum.
That's when we employ a nanny. No, we would not. Right. Anyway, on that note, where I discuss abandoning my children, just to sign off by saying thank you to everybody who has already voted for us in the People's Choice Awards for the British Podcast Award 2023. You've all been so lovely and been sharing this far and wide. If you would like to continue to do so, we would be very grateful. I genuinely don't imagine that we have a chance, but as you know, as with this entire adventure we've gone on with the podcast, you've got to give it a go and see where it lands. So we will see. We shall see. But yeah, it's been really, really fun, and we're fast approaching having done this for 6 months, which feels incredible. So thanks for being with us.
And also thank you for all your feedback last week. We're going to stick with the Facebook group for now.
I have made it private.
But we have made it private as requested, so hopefully that'll give you guys a bit more freedom. I will try and find my way in. You may see a celebratory post if I ever find it. It'll either be on the fan page or in the group. Who knows?
I've invited you. Yeah, I need to figure this out a little bit. So I may get a friend who's got a little bit more savvy in these areas to come in and help me. But anyway, for now, you take care of yourselves. So we will love you and leave you for now, but we'll be back with you on Monday with Eileen, and that's a tricky one, isn't it? That's another COVID death. So
yes,
there was
it's quite a hard listen.
Yeah, there was some striking parallels between her story and yours. And I, of course, will always be thinking of Emma and Jamie. So I approach it with caution, guys. It's a tough one to listen to, but it is, again, it's a fabulous episode, she says modestly. Well, I'm complimenting them, not me. Right, I'm going to shut up. Anyway, speak to you soon, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.